So I just finished watching the premiere of The Conners, which I'm sure tons of people were turned in to see. Number one, how is ABC going to explain Roseanne's OD on opioids? And number two, what is the dynamic of The Conners going to be like without her on the show? So don't touch that dial. We're going to talk about The Conners premiere coming up. What up to my peoples, and welcome to Retro Crunch, your nostalgia show where we talk about current news that relates to all things retro. Being a huge fan of Roseanne growing up and watching all of the seasons over the years, it's easy to jump into the Roseanne camp when it comes to being so dismissive of the Conners. But I'm not going to do that. I want to give you guys my feelings on the show, and as much as it does pain me to not have Roseanne on it, I'm actually going to give it a chance and see where they can go with it. So they started this episode jumping right into discussing Roseanne's funeral, and they wasted no time on it. Now, I did feel it was a little bit awkward with some of the acting, especially with John Goodman's character. I'm not sure if John Goodman just wasn't happy about Roseanne not being on the show or what, but he looked kind of uninterested. And just like the premiere episode of season 10, they did hit the ground running on politics. They talked about reincarnation, the war in Afghanistan, and Dan forcing himself to come to terms with accepting his grandson's lifestyle, which I think they did a pretty good job of addressing, by the way. And then talking about Roseanne having to get drugs from the neighbors because they can't afford health care. That was definitely political. All great subjects to tackle, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Conners is going to be able to address these issues without pandering to one political side or to the other. And getting to the death of Roseanne, we do discover that she died in her bed from an opioid overdose, and not from a heart attack, which the Conners originally believed to happen. And it tore me up finding out that Dan would not sleep in his own bed anymore. Man, I felt bad for him. I did think it was a little bit of a bad move for ABC to use her having an overdose as being the cause of death, considering Ambien was pretty much the cause of the end of her career. So you can't help but think that they might have been taking a little bit of a dig at her by killing her off that way. I'm a little bit bothered why they couldn't have just killed her off with a car wreck or even the heart attack like the Conners originally thought she had died from. But there still was some pretty good humor in the show tonight, and even without having Roseanne on the show, you could definitely tell it was still in the vein of the old Roseanne show. Becky and Jackie actually had some pretty great scenes, and Darlene was pretty witty as usual. But I just, throughout the whole show, I kind of felt like Roseanne should be like walking into the scene at any moment. Just felt like there was a little bit of a void there. And the show was actually really emotional, and there were moments where you could actually sense a real loss for Roseanne. Dan, even 4 weeks after her death, he was still learning to cope with it, and he wasn't even sleeping in their bedroom anymore. Although we do finally see him in their bed in the last scene of this episode, and he lays his arm over her pillow. So that was a pretty emotional portion of it. I ain't gonna lie, I almost cried. But does the show work? Yeah, I think it does. Is it gonna be as good as Roseanne? That really remains to be seen. Overall, I think it was a pretty good first episode for the Conners, and I look forward to next week and seeing how they can build on what they're trying to do with the show. So what do you guys think? Did y'all watch the premiere? And if so, do you think you're going to continue to watch it? Let me know what you guys think of this first episode in the comments down below. And with that, if you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. We put out retro videos every week, so if you're into retro news and nostalgia stuff, you're definitely in the right place. All right, my peoples, I hope y'all enjoyed this review, and I'll catch y'all on the flip side. And remember, if it ain't retro, it ain't worth watching.